Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harman. I'm Ella, Jeff's assistant. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'd like to say a special thank you to a lot of new subscribers that we've gotten recently. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoy the channel. Today, Jeff is going to, of course, give us an astrological energy forecast for the coming week. And we're going to dive into the craziness that's going on in the world. Our topics for this evening are the demonic forces winning? I say, no, they never will. And we're also going to look at time and discuss how astrology looks at time. So take it away, Jeff.
All right. Yeah. Some deep stuff. And again, some deep stuff going on in the world right now with this whole situation with Iran, Israel, Hamas, and everything. A lot of crazy stuff happening. A lot of innocent people getting in the crossfire, as always, when wars break out and atrocities like this happen. So, yeah, one of the things I wanted to go into a little bit is I did some research on Israel's chart. And Israel, according to the Truman National Archives, was formed on March 14th of 1948 at midnight, right at midnight. That's what they have it recorded as. So I'm going to go by that. And looking at the astrology for Israel, especially, I like to use something called primary directions or solar arc directions. They're very indicative of people and countries and events that have happened. And wow, what does Israel have going on right now? Well, the first thing they have is a primary directed Pluto. Here comes brutal Pluto again, squaring the Israeli moon. And it's really hot right now. When I say hot, that means, astrologers use degrees and minutes of arc in order to look at the perfection of an aspect. And of course, aspects are always squares, trines, conjunctions, all this type of stuff. They're geometry. And what's interesting is how hot this is. Between now and December, there's going to be some real fireworks over there. And of course, we've moved, the United States have moved a lot of hardware in the region. And there's already been reports of all this interception of cruise missiles and drones and stuff like that. And I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks here. And clearly, this is an extremely dangerous situation, not only for Israel, but for, I think, the world at large, because we're going to see backlash on this that's going to be formidable. And I think we're going to see it here in the United States. I think Europe's going to see it. And this is going to be a very dangerous situation. Again, I re-mentioned, I had in the past, I've had a lot of wonderful military people that I've done readings with and also had consulted with. And I can tell you that's one of the big concerns in the upper echelons of the military is a global jihad or a religious war on cleansing that could happen. And this happened before. When we look throughout history, there's always been clashes between religious factions that were exceedingly violent, on all sides of the fence. And I think this is one of the grave dangers of what's going on right now and probably what precipitated this whole thing. You get a lot of anger between cultures when this stuff happens. And that's what we're seeing right now. And the sad part is the innocent civilians on both sides of the fence really are the ones who suffer because of, these upper regimes going against each other. And this is a very difficult situation. And a lot of innocent people, again, are going to, I think, suffer from this. Furthermore, I want to mention, looking at the Israeli chart, literally between now and the next 2.5 years, we have also primary directed, or what we call solar arc, Mars squaring the Israeli Pluto. There it is again. See, anytime we have Pluto involved, we've been mentioning a lot of this with the United States, where it's going into its sidereal Pluto return all through 2024 into 2025. Of course, that's the election year. So Israel has Mars squaring Pluto. People ask, well, what does that mean? Well, that take matches and flip it over an open can of gasoline. It's just volatile. It's as volatile as it can get. And again, there's been all kinds of, fears. You see Iran getting now empowered where they're selling their oil to China. We've got all kinds of things going on with revenues coming in the Middle East, stuff going on in Iraq. So the hostilities here are really going to increase. And in the end, who wins? The bankers. They always win. They borrow to both sides. And it's just staggering when you look back at the historical proves, in my opinion. I actually tell this story, and I think it was in the early 1990s. I had a series of bankers who were trying to take some of the old war bonds that were issued by the USA to Germany. Isn't that interesting? Built the Hitler regime. Same thing with Japan. And people think this stuff is crazy, but these bankers at the top of the pyramid, they fund both sides of the fence. Always have, probably always will. So the astrology is clearly showing the trials and tribulations that Israel's going to be going through at least for the next 2-3 years. Also, I might mention Uranus is conjuncting the Israeli sun, stuff out of the blue, and this is exactly what's happening. So, I think things are really going to get cooking over here on this thing. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can all peaceably resolve it. But the astrology shows, and I don't want to take sides with anybody on anything. This is a horrible situation. And because I'll get hate mail if I say one thing or the other. My job is to look at, does the astrology show and explain a little bit as to the energies that are going on? The absolute answer is yes. Yes. You can't moon squaring Pluto by primary direction on the Israeli birth chart. Can't get more accurate than that. COVID broke out on the Pluto conjunct Saturn for the world. And of course, we've seen the world literally tipped upside down. And we've talked about how many times we see the owners at the top of the pyramid certainly seem to move at times that are commensurate with the astrology in the mundane world. So we're seeing this with countries, and we also see this clearly with Israel. Also, Mars and transiting South Node, which is known as K2 in Vedic astrology, we're right over the Israeli K2 as well. So this was really shown in the astrology how this all came about, and a tragic, horrible situation for everybody involved. But it's there. The energies are certainly there to show this. And also, too, I might mention, this is also very close to the United States Neptune opposition. Neptune, I've been mentioning, which is, again, more subterfuge, more confusion, more delusion. And what are we seeing in the United States? Again, the Republicans cannot elect a House Speaker. That's musical chairs. And there's all kinds of theories behind why that happened and why it is happening. And of course, we hear more about Biden coming out with, $200,000 wired here from the family members and on. And yet the House sits shipwrecked and the country remains divided. And this is the old mind control tactics that were developed a long time ago. And it's certainly working with the success of the media dividing the country, which is really what, again, the power brokers at the top of the pyramid want. So very interesting how accurate the astrology is. Again, I am very concerned about the good old US of A as we see these issues develop in the Middle East. Again, I've been mentioning we have some very dangerous and powerful aspects coming up between now and the end of this year and all the way into next year. With the Pluto return, we've got Saturn stationing over the United States moon here, coming right up October 23rd into the middle of November. Furthermore, we have this exceedingly dangerous solar arc or primary directed Mars over the United States moon. If that doesn't bring us something, and I hope it doesn't, I'm going to be very, very surprised. And again, we'll be talking a lot more about this over the upcoming podcasts. So dangerous and volatile times. Again, I'll repeat myself. Not a bad time, folks, to stock up and just keep your family and your loved ones safe and operate here as not business as normal. It's very dangerous times in this world. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of that. Now, on to our topic. And, you brought up a good point, Ella. Are the demonic forces winning? You're cracking into a subject that I actually really love to speak about. And of course, all the religions in the world all talk about some war in heaven, and, the spirits and the demons were cast down. And we see this in many different cultures put forth in different ways. The Vedantic stuff calls them deities. We call them angels in the West. Same thing. And it's really interesting when you get into the core elements of astrology. And I saw a great little movie just recently on the History Channel with William Shatner. I think it's called Unexplained Mysteries, right? And it was about time. Really an interesting viewpoint, how, they talked about the USS Eldridge and the Philadelphia experiment, also the Tesla projects where Pegasus was. It was really a great show. People should see it, because what they spoke about in there is they actually had people coming forward who said they were children who were put into time travel with the technology that Tesla had developed. Well, this brings an interesting topic about demonics, ufology, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, and abductions and all these different things, because there's a lot of people out there right now who are touching on this whole subject. Are these demons? Are these angels? Are these UFOs? Are the aliens? What's going on at Skinwalker Ranch, and what's going on with time? Well, now you get into a whole other subject that is far beyond what we could cover here tonight, but it's about the issues of what is these experiences as we call lives. And we see history riddled with wars and also peacetime as well, right? And great, advances, and a lot of history that's been hidden, like the Tartarian stuff and free energy. Right now we've got a lot of demonic forces, I think, at work. It's quite noble for them to run around and tout green energy and we're going to save the planet. But yet all the free energies that really truly exist are suppressed. They're not bringing them out. I mean, a windmill, solar panels, and, charging your Tesla is not free energy. It's just not. Now, the solar panels, they might argue, are. Yes, they are. But they're not efficient enough to replace what was there. And that is the, fossil fuel, coal-fired plants and the nuclear plants. And they're not easing us into this. They're crashing us into this. The government is literally telling us what vehicles to buy and what to do, and et cetera. And if they could ease us into this and maybe release some of the secret technology, it'd be really nice. So where am I going with all this? When you really back up and you look at communism, you look at the wars, and you look at some of the atrocities that have been committed, including right now, it is literally the clash of demonic forces. And it seems to have permeated into many areas of religion and many areas of power, the corridors of power. And we see this. And of course, there's much lore about the secret societies. I believe the demonic spirits were cast down, and I think they're embedded right into the molecular structures of the universes themselves. And literally, if you look at physics and quantum physics, they will talk about all these particles. And of course, the most simplistic is the electrons and protons of an atom, and the neutrality and the neutrinos and all these other particles. Well, when you think about that, it's really the juxtaposing forces of divinity and, you could say, decay, or you could say positive and negative. There's all kinds of ways to look at this, day and night. So there's all kinds of polarizing forces within this universe. And where I like to take all this is it also shows up in astrology. For instance, we all are spanked on the rear end in a delivery room. We're dumbed down. We're knocked out, right? We can't remember. That's this mark right here. And we grow. Then we mature and we peak. And then we atrophy, we decay, and we die. That is the nature of everything on this lower physical plane, is birth, growth, peaking. Then we start going into decline, atrophy, and die. And all things decay. And I know this sounds a little bit gross, but they actually say under Belial is Beelzebub, which is the Lord of Flies. And it's interesting, when something decays, what does it do? You get larvae, you get, they call them maggots, which is a little gross, but then it turns into flies. And this is all a process of decay, just like rust on metal. It's literally, it's like rust never does sleep. And so the forces of creation, the forces of growth are always there, but so are the forces of decay and destruction. And it shows in astrology. I always say people, we all live like a 3-act stage play. And you follow the planet of Saturn, which is believed to be the planet of karma, which releases on each return and also as it transits the moon. And again, we are out of here when certain configurations using the Nadi astrology, like K2 is over Saturn and the North Node, which are the eclipse points, are over Jupiter. So, and you have to have very special conditions with that. Just like Israel right now is in a moon dasha, and it's got all these forces on it, just like the United States has the decaying factor of the Pluto return. So Pluto also seems to be the destroyer, and you could say the rejuvenator or the transformer. So all these forces are not only in the very lives we are all living, we all see this. We all grow older, and we all find that, sooner or later, all of us are going to pass away, whether you're a plant, an animal, or whatever, or a human being. We're all going to go through this process. Everything does on this physical plane. So the demonic forces, I believe, are incarcerated, and they hate the human race because we actually get out, I think, when we die. I think we move on. Some of us reincarnate, but a lot of us will move on. And I think a lot of that has to do with how aware we are when we die. And also the dissipation of the karma according to the Nadi astrology. So the spirits, the evil ones, seem literally to be incarcerated here by the upper divine spirits, and they're held in abeyance here. So maybe that's why they hate the human race, and it seems like they always win, but they don't. They try and destroy humanity, but they never fully can. George Carlin was right. The earth is a big dog and we're the fleas. And I'm not that worried about the earth. The earth will come back because it's creation itself. And time is where spirit manifests into this realm of reality, which is really, really deep and cool stuff.
It really, really is. I want to just go back to the History Channel show that you mentioned, and we'll put it in the description below because it really is something people are interested should check it out, with William Shatner. William Shatner just from the jump is great, right? Narrating this and watch him. 92, by the way. 92
years old. And that dude is still trucking. He gives me hope. I love it.
He's still trucking. Yeah, he gives me hope too. But it's so interesting what they're talking about with this time travel, because that's what the episode is about, that we're going to link down below. And when you think about time, there really is no time, right?
There's no time.
We constructed because we have to live by time, right? We have to get to a certain place at a certain time. We have to pick up our kids at a certain time. We're going to eat at a certain time, meet somebody, whatever it is we're going to do. But when you think of the time travel, to me, it just seems like it's all energy. I feel like we can time travel, maybe not physically, but you can do it in other ways. What do you think?
Oh, astro travel is time travel. Really, when you think about time itself, there is no time. The only reason that we have time in these lives, which are very real, is you have sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight. You also have the synodic cycle of the earth around the sun. Even to the flat earthers, they got to agree it's that way. And you also have the lunar timing, and you have the timing of all the celestial influences, which is never, ever ending. And it's very interesting. It's almost like we're dumbed down and incarcerated into these karmic journeys. And again, the religions have done little to fully shed a light on this. Nadi astrology and the cycles in astrology actually do. It's quite fascinating. Again, I was always amazed. How could my poor mother die at 48 years old? That's very young. And it was right on. She was the one who turned me on to astrology. And Ketu was right over her Saturn. What does that mean? Liberation of karma. It's just you had a sister that passed away not too long ago. Same thing. Ketu right over the Saturn and the North Node over the Jupiter. And you have to look at it in very, special ways. But I see this all the time. And a lot of times I've also seen certain individuals who live to very advanced age don't have that same configuration. It's different. It's almost like maybe that soul was released from the bondage of karma in a different way. So again, I'll never live long enough to figure out the golden secrets in astrology. I mentioned a book a while back in the Maharil's book, also known as The Sacred Magic of Abramelin, or the Book of Abramelin, where he said he was brought by angels books that would be about astrology and the secrets of astrology. And as fast as he read them, he said he would turn the pages and the ink would disappear. And he said to the angel, he said, why is this happening? He says, because we will not allow the human race to understand or have this stuff fully until a new time of enlightenment. And it's a very interesting statement, wouldn't you say?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. When we talk about the demonic forces and the owners, it seems like these are demonic beings that are making all of this happen, all of the upset, all of the violence, all of the...
Oh, they love it. They love war. They love violence.
They love that. Why is that energy being supported here? I question this all the time. Like, why isn't it just about love? Why isn't it just about love?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have a snappy answer to that one, but I can tell you it sure seems to be prevalent, at least in this time yuga. There are ages of darkness and enlightenment, and apparently there's all kinds of dispute about the yugas. Our solar system is believed to travel around this central binary star, and it does so somewhere around 25,700 something years. It's called the Great Year. And there's also in the Vedas mentioned the 250 million year galactic yugas, which are really, this stuff is deep. And I've heard so many viewpoints. And I don't claim, and I've never seen anybody yet who's really called it 100%. But one of the theories is that we're in a Tetra Yuga, in a Kali sub-yuga. That's one point. And that we're going to be moving out of this dark rift into an age of enlightenment. And when might that be? It's quite possibly in a couple hundred years from now. Not that we won't have enlightenment within that, but I think the dark forces right now are really pushing hard to incarcerate the human race. And a lot of it has to do with technology. We are so interdependent on all this high-tech stuff. I mean, everything, banking, everything is done online. My heart goes out to young parents now, because these little kids, I mean, half of them are running around with iPhones at 7 years old. And I'm like, thank God my son escaped that, because the iPhones didn't come in until he was in his teenage years. And of course he had one, but they weren't that sophisticated. And now they are. I mean, all these young children, talk about mind control. I mean, your whole world is literally online. It's all a virtual world.
It really is. I mean, when I was a kid, my mom was buying me marbles and jacks, and I would sit with my sister and just play a game of jacks, or we'd play cards and listen to great music. And it's just so different now. The technology, the iPhone, the phone itself has just changed everything. And it's really scary. It actually is scary, like what young people are taking in constantly. Sometimes when I'm online, I can't believe my eyes. I just have to shut it off, put it away, because it's so outrageous.
Well, and this is contributing to that. And this is why, again, it's really important, not that I'm here telling anybody what to do, but, we got to stay spiritually centered. And again, when you go for a walk in nature, or you get in touch with the earth and the vibration of the earth, it's really cool. And, we're so dependent on technology. It becomes, again, I always talk about the lower conscious mind. It is like silly putty. And see, the demonic forces know this. This is why they infiltrate all these rulers of power, and they focus on the youth, program the youth. Look what they're doing in the colleges. Look what they're doing in the schools. And you can actually see, again, know them by their fruits. Look at a lot of these governors that are pushing all these laws that are taking away the rights of parents. It's really demonic, truly demonic.
Yeah, I know that you've seen that in the astrology. Like when something is happening, it literally is in the chart. Or if somebody poses a question about a certain something that has to do with demonic energy, it's right there. It's just right there.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because you can see certain configurations in the Nadi astrology that are really eerie, where you can actually see individuals. I've done readings where I've said, oh my God, this person was really demonic in your family. It could have been a brother, could have been a father, could have been a mother, and it shows up. It's quite eerie. So it's almost, again, like we're in a matrix here of good and evil, and you can get any point in between. It's absolutely stunning. I mean, when I think back to my childhood and I saw the yogas and everything that were going on, I mean, it doesn't mitigate it, but I can see why I went through such a crap storm. It's so difficult. Remember, we saw on your chart, you can see right away when there's issues with certain family members. I've seen it in so many different people, and it's absolutely amazing. I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. This is truly the matrix. When you look at this soul cauldron called Earth, which there's really no time, but we're certainly in it when we're in these bodies. And I think the more we look at it from that perspective, the more our consciousness starts to expand, and we look at life and the experience of it in a more healthy way, even in the face of all this crazy stuff that goes on this planet.
Yeah. And we can do that. We definitely can do that. So, well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks a lot. We can talk about this all day long.
Oh, yeah, and never scratch the surface.
That's right. Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching, who's joined us. Take good care of yourselves. Have a great week. And we'll see you next time on Astrology Today.